Everybody's having a fantastic Saturday. If you're watching this, chances are your Saturday did not go quite as well as you had hoped. Get my libations working over here. We'll go ahead and let some folks get in on the chat, and then I will start rambling on. Any of you guys even see that April Fool's thing that Dodge put out there? Pretty interesting, really, when you think about it. Now, all of a sudden, Dodge has got a sense of humor about themselves, which, you know, I would say normally would be pretty, I don't know, funny in a way. I mean, a little bit of self-effacing humor is always kind of a thing. Hey, what's up, Multi-Zen? A little self-effacing humor is always nice, humbling, really, when you think about it. But, well, let's just go ahead and get this party started. So when I first saw that, one of the things that had crossed my mind was, wow, Hemi Journey. Okay, obviously that's going to be a bit of a joke, but for some folks, they're saying, well, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I mean, just look at what Dodge has been putting Hemis in already. And so when you go down the list, it's kind of a murderer's row of four-door cars, and with maybe just one two-door thrown in there with the Challenger. So, you know, maybe it's just going to be a little bit of an April Fool's joke, right? Well, the problem is, who's this joke really on? Because I got a joke for you. By the way, this show is probably not going to be safe for work. So, fair warning, we might be taking this to like an old school late night edition. Anyway, here's a joke for you, Dodge. I don't know. Answer 392 Hemi powered anything. What hasn't been updated for the last decade? I'll take 392 powered anything for 200, Alex. I don't know. What gets its shit pushed in on the street from roll races by Mustang GTs, which are stock? These are the questions and the answers that are unfortunately being thrown out there regularly by guys with 392 powered cars. Not so much of a joke, really, when you think about it, especially when you consider the fact that, well, once again, as I've said over and over again, if you want to find yourself a sweet deal on a lightly used 392 powered anything, look no further than your local Ford dealership's used car lot. See, that's the issue that you run into with this. You're getting a lot of sales with the Challenger, but you're not getting that recidivism. In other words, people aren't coming back to Dodge in a big way. Lots of new money, but not a lot of repeat buyers. And although there are quite a bit that are out there, I will say this, that are buying, you know, they're graduating up from a 392 into a Hellcat. A lot of those folks aren't buying those new. They're buying them on the used market. And a lot of those folks that are selling those cars, talking about the Hellcat specifically, have gotten a little bit disenfranchised with the brand as a whole. What with pricing being absolute, almost had a little bit of a libation malfunction. Getting back to it, with a lot of those folks, with the pricing of these supercharged Hellcat variants, whether it's the Hellcat, the Red Eye, the Demon, or what have you, with a lot of folks taking a look at that and, well, just trying to come up with a scratch for one of those things, it's a little bit outside of the price range for most folks. Basically, Dodge has taken a market segment and has pushed it so far up in terms of the stratosphere for folks that can afford them that, well, they've forgotten that they've been making their case, if you will. They've been exploiting their Hemi name and that muscle car heritage for so long that they've forgotten who their core buyers were, it seems like. So for me, it's a little bit frustrating to see that. Instead of, well, you know, April Fools, go ahead and hold off on that until, I don't know, 4/26. You know, April 26th has always been in the Dodge community, people will say, oh, happy Hemi Day, and it's supposed to be something cute. Only to have Dodge put out, this is how strongly, what people have to understand is this is how diehard fans take things like this. A few years ago, y'all might remember when Dodge had put out the Happy Hemi Day on 426, how many rumor mill churners did that put into absolute overdrive? You had so many people saying, oh, they're coming out with a 426, and a couple of dumbasses out there saying that they're stopping production of the 392. I have my sources. Clickbait, lying motherfucker. Look, this is exactly what we ran into 3 years ago. People want and are craving an update. People want and are craving a change, and we thought we were going to have that with the 1320. What's funny is that, talking about rumors and really the April Fool's joke kind of falls into that same kind of value in a way, just because it's false information, I guess. But think of it like this. When the 1320 was released, there was a point in time where there was a rumor that they were actually going to put the 370 gear in the 1320. Do you guys remember that? And there were so many people that got real excited about that. They were going, oh my God, that's amazing. That size tire with a 370 gear is going to be just like the trucks when they're running the 392 gear with a 28-inch tall tire. These things are going to be monsters out of the hole. This thing is going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome and blah, blah, blah. But what happened? 1320 was released with no gearing option at all available. And it doesn't take away from the coolness of the car, but the problem is that just like what Dodge has been doing lately, your expectation is here, but then they kind of just fall a little bit short. And unfortunately, that's been their MO, and that's what a lot of people, what's turned away a lot of folks from Dodge. What's funny is that there's a lot of folks right now that I've talked to, just in general. I'll get messages, people hit me up on Instagram or whatever, and I've been getting more questions about Mustangs lately. I'm not a modern Mustang guy. I can't really walk you through a list of what makes a Mustang great. There's other channels for that, but I can tell you this, I'm getting touched up on that because guys are actually getting rid of their Dodges to get Fords again. I know, oddly enough, you don't hear too much about the Camaro in these discussions, and, for whatever reason, that's what it is. But, so let me get back to it. When this rumor mill and the false information and all of that was churning about 3 years ago about the 392, and then it was the 1320 didn't get the gear, and, oh, we're going to make this little joke, journey with a Hemi, and then there was like this recantion about it saying, well, yeah, we couldn't do it even if we wanted to. It wouldn't pass. We can't fit it in there. There's all this. Dude, what the hell was that? That's such a half drunk frat boy trying to explain something. It's like, dude, you don't have 15 brain cells rattling around in your dome anyway, much less lived up. You're going to try to tell me, try to break this thing down now? How about this? No Hemi powered journey, haha, but hey, Mopar gods. But how about on 426, you release an updated 1320 with a 426 Hemi. Happy Hemi Day, here's something with a 426 Hemi, and actually drive that home, because here's the problem, Dodge. You got too many flag wavers that are so sick of hearing about 426, Happy Hemi Day, and all of that. All the meanwhile, not even having a 426 Hemi. Are you kidding me? I guess there's no 392, right? I mean, you can't go happy March 92nd. What would that end up being anyway? March, let's see, 31st, April 30th, May 31st, okay? So it would be happy May 31st for 392, I guess, right? So basically what I'm saying is this. Hey, Dodge, before you start trying to do this freaking open mic night at the Improv, why don't you go ahead and do something of a little bit of substance? Make the jokes, and you can make the jokes when you've put something out there that's new, fresh, exciting, or whatever, because right now, all we have to look at from the NA side to be honest, is, well, if you're looking at the 392, what, a 10-year-old platform? Actually, it would be 11 years old, not 12. It's because you've got 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So 11 years. All right. We got 11 years without a real update with that engine. And spare me the 475 versus 485. It's the same engine. Don't even go there. 5.7's basically rowing that same boat. And yeah, we did get the 8-speed in 2015. But you know what? Clock's ticking right now. And your competition, being the Ford Mustang, if you want to call that the competition, there's already rumors about the S660 and that platform being released. And that will represent, since 2015, since we're going to go in lockstep, you know, I don't know, body style for body style, what, 3 changes, 3 modern, modern updates leading into this maybe do something in 2023 rumor that's out there. I don't know. It's starting to get a little bit long-winded. It's starting to get a little bit, well, boring, if you want to be frank about it. So, again, save the open mic night and save the humor for people that are actually funny, and get out there and engineer something that'll actually be exciting for the flag bearers of your brand before they jump ship. Or at least I should say before any more of them jump ship at the rate that they're going already. So with all that being said, let me check in with everybody and say what's up. Multiple Mopars is in first. I like it, brother. Good visiting with you today too, my man. Always good. Goldberg saying, no hat, sporting the glasses. Let's go. That's right. Eric saying, what up, Professor B? Got the arm flex. I like it. Bruce saying, hell yeah, B got the flex. Saying Mopar and Whataburger rep in Texas. I love that, man. I cannot. Taquitos, baby. Keeps me flying high until 11 in the morning. Ryan saying Dodge is still selling a ton of 6-cylinder Chargers and Challengers. FYI, I'm a new Dodge owner. I'm happy thus far. 20 Challenger RT Plus A8. Very fun car. He had the, got the flex and the ball guy with the shades. I like it. James saying, yep, finally got a Hellcat, only to be the slowest on the street in my class. At least I'm old school and it simply pulls at my heartstrings. But really, where's the Hellcat cat? Well, funny you should mention that Hellcat thing. So, yeah, don't be looking for that anytime soon, at least not in the form of an aluminum block. A lot of folks having problems with Hellcats. And anybody that's actually tried to push one has figured out pretty quickly that that aluminum block does things that a block isn't supposed to do. The supercharger itself is kick-ass, but unfortunately, despite many folks' best efforts, IHI is not going to market that directly. So I've got an open invite. If IHI wants to send me that supercharger, I will do all the real-world testing, drag testing, tuning, development, drag racing, especially drag racing, as a plug-and-play swap. But until then, nothing there. So there's that to think about. But oh yeah, that's a 426, but it's a crate motor. It's not in a real car, so it doesn't really matter. LS Swap Everything saying car manufacturers doing April Fool's jokes should be illegal. Yeah, especially when they're Dodge. Brendan saying, hey, be happy Easter. Happy Easter, man. Dropping my 2020 Hellcat off at HHP. Very nice. In early July for their Stage 1 package. Should get anywhere from 750 to 790 rear-wheel horsepower with a trans tune. Think that's enough to put me in the 9s? Yeah, I do. It'll be high 9s. You'll have to have good air, but yeah, you will definitely get there. Oh, speaking of which, so if y'all didn't catch it, this is the number of passes from Thursday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and there's a couple of flub passes. Got about 12 or 14 passes in Thursday night. Best out of the group was that one right there, baby. 10-15 at 134.85. So that was the best of the night. We had a 10-19. Y'all, that should be real familiar at 135 and change. She clicked off a 10-18 at just under 135 miles per hour. Here's another 1019 right there. And this one was pretty cool. So let's talk about that for a minute. I'll get off of my ranting about FCA's jokes. Haha, yeah, real funny. Anyway, for those of you guys that have been around the show for a while, I had a goal for Revlon, and the goal for Revlon was to run a 10-teen, whatever that number was going to be, 10-19-9-9, it didn't matter, in 0 DA. And, well, we got it. 10-1-9-5 at 135.14. And the DA at the time of this run was exactly flat 0. It might have been, 10 or 15 degrees up, but I'll give up the 15 feet and just call that 0. Pretty cool stuff. And the car ran literally 1020, no slower than a 10.2X the entire night. I don't think I have anything. Yeah, 1020, another high 20, 23, 22, 21. There's a 299. Like I say, even when I screwed up a pass and pushed through the beams, which I still can't believe I did. If y'all are watching that, that was actually live with me pushing through the beams, by the way. Even with me pushing through the beams, the car still went a 20. So, had a great time, and can't wait to do it again. There was a private track rental that I was able to jump on. So, wanted to get you guys the content, get you guys the ride-along videos, as well as show you that sometimes, even when you do this all the time, you can screw it up. So, let's see. Ella Swap's saying Dodge needs to make something that competes with the EcoBoost. That would be kind of cool, just as something different. Sovereign saying, smash that like button, folks. Yeah, smash the like button, y'all. Brian saying, hey, B, just got the car out today here in Minnesota. Very nice. I like that. Dr. Div saying, my wife just said, I want a Hemi. See, we're rubbing off on her. I like it. LS Swap is saying, I'm sorry she doesn't want an LS. Doctor saying, I want to see Dodge do a 12 or 14 speed transmission. That's funny. Sovereign saying, bring a new CUDA. The funny thing about bring a new CUDA is that when you break that down, I mean, how would they do it? The LX platform is really wide, and I guess you could make a 2-door Charger basically and call that the CUDA, make it smaller and maybe a little bit lighter than the Challenger. That would be pretty cool. Marco's checking in saying 5'7" Hemi, got the arm flex. Ella Swap anything saying a Hemi powered minivan would be interesting for the dad that sold his fun car for a more family friendly vehicle. That's why they made the Durango and the SRT and the Trackhawk. Dr. Diff is shouting out Hemi. Anthony saying, what's up? Amanda's saying Dodge needs to update the 392 like Ford has done to the 5.0. Honestly, just needs stronger internals and more power. And Marco is saying needs to update the 5.7. You know, the funny thing is that the 392 internals are actually really good. That where it gets a bad rap is, whenever you throw boost on an 11-to-1 engine that's that big, that has a tight ring gap, you're going to run into problems. If you tear the thing apart and give it ring gap like you're supposed to, you'll actually be able to make a ton of power with that engine just the way that it sits. I mean, just ring gap and let her rip. I just can't, nobody does that. That's the thing. I mean, that is a lot of work for, just for reliability's sake. So, but I understand exactly what you're saying for sure. Too many folks are making too much power with some of these other platforms. Dr. is saying, looking at a 19 Grand Cherokee SRT8 and a Durango RT. Either way, we'll be putting the B Mason cam and intake on it. Very cool. I like it. Let me know. Summer Night saying, hey, Dr. D. Summer saying, working that 6.2. Yeah, absolutely. bunch of stock stuff, running into a fuel quality issue. So Dr. Diff and Multiple Mopars know all about that. But yeah, in fact, I just haven't had a chance to do it. I've got a lot of data logs and I haven't had a chance to really to dissect them any more than I have yet. But I'm just, for whatever reason, the fuel quality right now just kind of is suck, and gonna have to bite the bullet and throw a little boosting in her and hopefully get some data on it tomorrow. I think that the place that sells it down the street is going to be open. If they are, going to boosting her up and see if that quells anything. If it does, then it's just a fuel quality issue. And this tune really shouldn't need any adjustments. It shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. But, you know, it's just like I've been saying to you guys, you know, my car doesn't have that much timing in it. In fact, it's a stretch to even find cells with 2 more degrees of timing in them than factory. For the most part, it's half a degree here, a degree there, nothing really to it. So the interesting thing is that, you know, whenever you start looking at it and you're going, God, this is driving me absolutely batty with, you know, the voltage is low, but it's still pulling timing and all this other goofy stuff. It's just hot rod stuff. But I tell you, I was out playing with it today, data log. I say playing with it, data logging the thing, trying to educate myself as to how knock sensor voltage is not really playing fair with me, and car runs great. So, and for you guys that are playing around with your own tunes, I tried. Now, keep in mind, the car ran great. This was with the NA style pedal follower. And the car did great. I mean, it was coming out of the hole like a little monster for the most part. But believe it or not, the car actually runs better with the factory pedal follower, and there's no more KPA to be found. In other words, slamming that throttle blade wide open real quickly. I mean, I can literally make the throttle open to wide open throttle faster than I can push my foot to the floor with the pedal. And believe it or not, and you would think that, okay, well, if you open the thing all the way, there's less restriction and maybe the blower, it's easier for the blower to pull in air. The KPA, in other words, the actual boost, the pressure under the blower, in essence, no different. Even when the throttle curve from your point of view will come up, kind of arc over and then arc back up again, no difference in actual boost number. So it makes sense when you think about it. I mean, there's less of an air demand by the engine, so you're cracking the throttle at that point halfway open, but that's fine because at that airflow demand, you only need that much throttle to be open. Might kill velocity or something like that to crack it all the way. I thought that I had seen a gain, frankly, in 60 foot by cracking the throttle wide open that quickly. The time slips would like to argue with my hypothesis, if you will. It didn't work out like that. So back to stock it is, and the car drives and runs around beautifully like that. So yay. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to bring y'all into the loop. It's going to be kind of hard to show y'all on the screen. Let me see if I can get this thing pulled up. I'd actually like to try to show this, but don't know if I'll be able to. So let's see. Oh, LS says saying he was playing with one of those Jeeps on the street. Yep. Saying, yep, they can make power. Let's see. CFL James got the 2 thumbs up in the flex. I like it. Sean saying 392 with some slightly different ring gap specs would be a pretty good setup. So, you know, the funny thing is that when that, let me think about this. When the ring, I think the ring gap is like 19, no, it's less than that. It's like 1800ths. And you really need, for that engine to act right, you need about 2700ths on your top ring and probably 2900ths on your second ring. I mean, you could still go 25 top, or you could go 26 top and middle, but anyway, it needs significantly more ring gap. That piston is just a big old slug in there. So bigger the piston, the wider the ring gap needs to be. Think of it like a percentage. You're looking at like 0.07 per inch of bore, basically, is what I would suggest for street use pump gas. You can get away with that with the 85 too, but I think you get the idea. Let me see if I can pull. Oh, what the hell was that? Oh, that's not what I'm looking for. Data logs, data logs. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to see if I can pull one of those up. But yeah, it's been a real treat. Let me tell you. Messing with these. Bear with me just 1 second, guys. Let me get this. So I can get this data pulled up for you. Da, 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 da. Where is? Well, I'll mess with it later. Nuclear Shark Sex and B Basin. What do you think of Torred Mac's accomplishments with the 392 Scat running mid to low tens? So I haven't kept up with that for a long time. I know that he had been messing with a lot of stuff with those cars early on, and was basically a pioneer in getting those cars to run a 10. So I would say that it's a pretty kick-ass accomplishment. Now the funny thing is that there's a lot of guys that were following in his footsteps, and a lot of folks that are running cammed 392s that have their cars into the 10s as well. But what ends up happening with a lot of that is, well, to be honest with you, it has a lot to do with money. And it's the amount of money that you're throwing at a 392 powered anything to get it to run a number. The problem there is that you're not really, it's never a good idea to buy a vehicle based on potential. Now, a lot of folks will buy Mustangs based on potential because they're going to do a lot of work to them, but it kind of is what it is when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean that he's done a lot of really good work with that car. Hats off to him. Jermaine's asking a really good question. Would you prefer a cam 5.7 or a bolt-on 6.4? Man, so it all depends on what you're going to be doing with this car and why you would want something with a cam in it. So I'll break it down for you like this. If the question is, would I rather have a cammed, geared, maybe converted 5.7 versus a tuned 392 with like a resonator delete or something like that, because the stock exhaust is really good on those cars. To do all the work to the 5.7 is going to cost you quite a bit of coin, but it'll put you right there with a 392 in terms of performance, power, and might even be able to beat it just in general at a drag strip with that gear and all. But it just depends on what you want. The 5.7 will have a lot more theater to it. And it's going to be more of a hot rod. It's going to be fun in that respect. And this is where the discussion really goes from fast to fun. You've got to define really what you're looking for. And nowadays, the problem is that everything is really, really freaking fast. It was not that long ago that an 11-second car, which all of the modern, anything 19 and up 392 with the operating systems anyway, that is a solid 11-second car on a drag pack. And so when you take that into consideration, there's nothing from the 60s that would even come close to that level of performance. And when you take that versus what a 5.7 will do, the 5.7 is going to have a lot of ground to cover to keep up with that 392. But The 5.7 with a cam and everything else, let's say it doesn't necessarily run mid 11s or an 1170 or 1180, but let's say it runs 12.1 or a 12.2. That's basically the same. And with a gear, it might be a little bit quicker and it will be snappy and fun to drive. Again, all fantastic attributes. I've also found that, you know, they seem to take better to tunes. They just, for whatever reason, aren't as twitchy, maybe, as a 392 can be. But that's really neither here nor there. The big difference here is what exactly are you going for? Do you want something that sounds good, or do you want something that's comfortable to drive, idles like, well, would be a stock car? It all just depends on really what you're looking for. So for me, what would I rather have? Man, it's tough to say. But if we're talking about a cammed and a geared, long tubes, high flow cats, ported intake, maybe a swap over to a 392 intake with a functional short runner valve, all of that, man, I'd be hard pressed to walk away from that 5.7 if it's done the right way. Just because you could have the theater and have the performance to go with it, and have something that's a bit unique and that bucks the trend a little bit. So that's what I would do. But again, that's only because I've owned a 392 that was full bolt-on that was a low 11-second car with the stock cam. So I can say that only because it would be something different for me. The twist here is, how old would it get long-term with a car with that much cam? I don't know. I've owned cars with a lot of cam. They can pose some, that was almost beverage malfunction number 2 almost. It just depends on really what you're looking for, honestly. But they can both be very fun. Let's see. Hemi is saying, hey, be talking to a Mopar reputable local shop and making arrangements to have them do dyno engine / trans tune using Diablo Sport with T2. Anything I should be aware of or looking out for? Man, you know, always stick to the basics. When you take your car to the dyno, first thing you need to do is make sure oil is changed. Second thing you need to do, full of very fresh gasoline. Third thing, don't take the car to the dyno on your drag pack. That happens a lot, makes a complete mess of things, and will destroy those tires. Try to take it down there on a good set of street tires. And I mean good, fresh, less than 6 years old set of street tires. Aside from that, just make sure it's clean. You know, one of the things that people forget about is that if you've got somebody crawling around underneath your car trying to strap it down, you don't want to be dealing with a bunch of just dirt, funk, and everything else. Bad look in general. And just basically give it a thorough look. Make sure that it is, in fact, fit to be strapped down and load tested. Because it will be load tested, and that's something that you're just going to have to understand that, you know, not all cars, I mean, it's not uncommon to turn vehicles away because they've had issues. There's some type of a mechanical problem that would, you know, cause an issue. So just give it a good once over, you know, torque all the wheel nuts, or torque all the lug nuts. Just trying to think of goofy stuff that has happened on the dyno. You know, basically stock car bolt-ons, things like that. You never really run into problems with those, but make sure your air filter is clean. You'd be surprised, you crack open an air box and the air filter, you've got, like, you know, a small ecosystem growing in that thing. Clean your air filter, and please, for the love of God, if you've got a catch can, empty your catch can. There's nothing worse than having a car on the dyno start sucking oil out of a catch can. Anyway, if you've got a catch can, you should be draining it at the very least every 4 weeks. Stay on top of that. Make sure that thing is drained as well. Again, the basics, general maintenance, that type of stuff is really all you need to do, but it needs to be done and make yourself a checklist and just check everything off on the list and have it ready to go. But again, oil change, fresh gas, make sure everything's torqued down, lug nuts, everything else. You'd be surprised, by the way. Fresh air filters. You'll be in good shape with all of that. So give her a rip. Sean, thank you very much. Saying truck updates. How's spring treating you? Good. And truck, we'll see. So the truck that he's asking about is Sierra. And looks like the original carburetor that I'd picked up a used Edelbrock carburetor. It looks like it might have had a bad float. Still a little bit on the fence, but I've got a brand new ABS2 650 heading to Doc Differential Shop, and going to be swapping that out, and should be the fix. It's the annular discharge ABS, and for that truck, I mean, that again, that's more than enough carburetor for that truck. So we'll get the truck back, recurve the distributor, and go out and have some fun with her. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while since I've been able to drive that truck. That truck always puts a big old dumb looking grin on my face. So, but thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate that. And yep, it'll be back soon enough. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, anyway, hopefully that gets you where you need to be with that, taking your car to the dyno. Well, I blew past all of this. Mac's trying to send me something, but I can't tell what that is. Brian saying, to be honest, I'm a big fan of Mopar, but I did drive a 2020 GT Mustang late last year for $35,000. It looks like they did buy a 2020 Mustang 10 already because I felt it was the best bang for my dollar at the time. So here's the problem. A lot of guys are finding that to be true. And, the Mustang is ergonomically pretty awesome. A little bit better in terms of efficiency with use of space. And I'll take it a step farther than that. There's some gadgets and gizmos that the Mustang has that the Dodges just don't, with the active exhaust and, the rev matching and all of that kind of good stuff in a package that feels like with the automatic that it's rev matching, which is kind of cool. And those are just the two that come straight to mind. But what's funny is that the Mustang itself, not a bad combination, really good combination. I've said it over and over again. I mean, you could have both of those cars in your garage and literally bookend a driving experience. So, I got to tell you, they're not bad. They're not bad in terms of Ford versus Challenger, for example, because to me, they don't compete against each other, and not the way that you would think anyway. And, you got something that's big and something that's small, and it's like it's kind of like they're in two completely different weight classes that, you can't really compare the two. So for me, if you like Mustangs, cool. And you got to remember one thing too. A lot of Mopar guys today are actually Ford guys that never had the opportunity to buy Mopars back when they were kids. And if you're of a certain age, you fall into this category. If you remember Fox Body Mustangs when you were in junior high or high school or college, then you fall into this category. Because if you're old enough to know about those cars when you're that young, there was no Mopar equivalent out there. I mean, you had the Daytona Turbo Zs and things like that, but you're too far removed from the Aspens, the Roadrunner Aspens, and some of the other, there was a couple in there like late 70s cars, but nothing really made it into the 80s. And I mean, if you're in grade school or middle school in the 80s, I can tell you that you didn't have a Mopar to work on. And chances are it had probably turned to dust by the time you got old enough. Just not that many Mopars were out there, but you had Mustangs. And the world was infested with Mustangs at the time. I mean, you could pick up in 1990, you could pick up an 84 or an 85 or an 83 GT Mustang and have a pretty hot street hot rod on your hands. And that's what a lot of guys learned how to work on. They were easy to work on. Parts were becoming much more available. The Camaro, I mean, I got a third gen sitting right behind me over here. The third gen on the other side of this wall right here, it's just a lot harder to work on. The Mustangs were a lot easier to work on. So guys like me, that's what you learn to work on when you're working on cars, were Mustangs. And so you've got a lot of entrenched Ford guys that were kind of not really closet Mopar guys, but we always wanted one. They always thought they were cool, different, between Mopar and AMX, a couple of really cool car manufacturers that you just never could find those cars. They just weren't out there. They didn't really exist in our world, so to speak. And so Ford it was. But now that Mopar has been stagnant and stale for so long, well, to be honest with you, a lot of those same guys and gals that, have had their fill of Mopar are starting to go back to Ford, and for a bunch of different reasons. There's not just one or two. It could be anything. It could be the fact that Ford's interior is more efficiently laid out, the gadgets, the gizmos, whatever, the aesthetics of the thing. Because let's be honest, Mustangs look damn good. Could be anything, and so that's kind of my thoughts on that. I'm bummed out when I hear that people are moving away from Dodge, but at the same time, I completely understand it. So there's that. Himmy Head, thank you very much. Saying got the $3.92. I like it. Always enjoy the chats either live or later. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, buddy. Appreciate the contribution. Appreciate the support. But and Sean, yeah, well, I'll let you know as soon as the truck comes in, man. Because that'll be fun. Let's see. Oh yeah, Nuclear saying, yeah, those 10-speed Mustangs are a real compelling package for sure. Yep. LS is saying, you got a 2020 GT for 35 grand. Actually, there are some deals out there on those cars. And yes, you can find them that cheap. Base model 315 cars, I have heard of it. Oh, Himmy had saying on the Jeep front, saw YouTube TFL vid about the EV Jeep. They just put an electric motor up front. It still has the transfer case, gearbox, and regular Jeep running gear. Seemed pretty cool. Yeah, so here's the thing. There's going to be some pretty neat looking EVs and coming down the bend. When I say neat looking, I just mean attractive. How do I put this? As engineers start to buck the trend of what a Tesla is, and they start doing things that backyard mechanics were doing about 25, 30 years ago, you're going to start to find some pretty cool stuff. So what exactly does that mean? Well, I remember, and this was done numerous times, guys would get an old, just roached out B2000 Mazda truck, or they'd get some mini truck, right? Or they would get some mini truck. It didn't matter what it was. And if you played your cards right, you could pick up the large electric motors and speed controllers and all of that out of electric forklifts. I forget how many horsepower it is. I think it's like 13 or 18 horsepower, whatever it is, electric motor that makes a bunch of torque. I mean, the thing only spins like 3,500 RPM or whatever it is. But anyway, guys would take these things and they would mount them. Basically, they would fabricate something to a bell housing, mount these things to their transmissions. take batteries, put them in the bed of the truck, speed controller and all that. They did whatever with that, swap the pedals out, but basically that was it. And so you would have this mini truck with an electric motor, and it was basically just a hot-rodded golf cart that you could drive around wherever. It's been forever since I've even thought of that, and then all these EVs start coming out. I'm thinking, man, this is kind of neat. You know, it's like a blast from the past in a way. And so anyway, there were guys that have been doing that for years and years and years. You can Google that maybe. I don't know. Like I say, it's been a long time, but I do remember several people talking about this, you know, conversion that they were doing, this little electric runabout pickup truck. Who knew? You know, we'd be living in these days. But let's see. Brian saying, hey, Buff. What is that? Summer saying Mustangs and Mopars for sure. Marco saying C5 Corvette or 5.7 cammed Ram with long tube headers. Depends really on what you're doing with it. Two completely different packages and two completely different things you can do really with them. I mean, if you're looking to carve corners, obviously that Vet is going to be probably the better bet, although seats are a little bit suspect in C5 Corvettes. They're infinitely, they don't have a lot of support, so you can find yourself rocking back and forth in those. At least I did in my Z06. But 5.7 cammed Ram with long tubes and, you know, all the fixins will absolutely haul ass. It just won't be as quick in general as the Vet. So, lots of aftermarket support, obviously, from the C5. I don't know if there's a car that's not a Fox body that has more aftermarket support. So there's always that. Oh, Brian saying Bud, gotcha. Oh, Nuclear saying Ford's got incentives on leftover 20s. Max saying I got a Tesla, don't ask. Sovereign saying shocking. Yeah, in fact, you know, it's good on Tesla for everything that they've done. You guys know I used to live in NorCal, and you know, we'd see the coupes on the side of the road with their speed controllers basically on fire. But as these manufacturers are learning more and more about what really makes these things perform, I mean, if you've ever been in the RC world for any real length of time, you'd know pretty quickly what makes electric motors really work. But again, you know, once they start adding these multiple speed transmissions to the mix, you're going to see these cars get real fast. And let's just say that you'll start to probably in the next 10 years, you will question why you ever owned a gasoline powered car, especially when these things start getting 2-3 speed transmissions and they're keeping that motor in a high load state. It's one of the reasons why the e-tron, the RS e-tron, which is the Audi, that thing runs high 10s at 125. The Porsche, what is that thing? Some other kind of cool name. I always get that name jacked up. Anyway, that thing runs mid 10s at 130, and it will do it basically all day. So you start seeing 2-speed, then 3-speed automatics with these motors being kept in a high load state. You're going to see mile an hour start to eclipse the gasoline variants. And see, really, when it comes to the driving experience, that's the twist. That's the rub that for so long the gas crowd has been able to lean on. It's like, yeah, they accelerate like hell for, you know, 7 or 8, 9 seconds, but after that they just lay over. It's like, yeah, they lay over because they didn't have a transmission, and developing transmissions that can handle that kind of a torque hit is tough to do. You got to remember that you're talking about a motor that, if given the opportunity, will suck as many amps out of that battery as it possibly can. So amps mean torque, and it will make all the torque. If you give it enough amperage, it will take it, and it will just keep making these insane torque numbers. So whenever you shift and you reload that motor, that transmission has to be able to handle all that torque. Like, it's not just dealing with the lesser torque on the big end of the RPM scale like you have in a gas-powered motor, when you shift gears, it's a much harder torque hit. That's why it's tougher to build those automatics, but they can absolutely do that. And when they do, like I said, get ready, because when the electric motor cars start out mile-an-houring the gas-powered cars, that's when a lot of hot rodders are going to completely change their loyalty. Believe that. If you think that's not the case, just wait till they line up. And there's no amount of belly aching or butt hurt that's going to get you out of that losing side of a conversation. Believe me when I say that. That's just how electric stuff works. Unfortunately, there's just an efficiency that gasoline can't get to. Duracell don't work on cars. Great for Eastern bunnies. Let's keep it at that. Well, good thing they're not using Duracells. Oh, hang on a second. Hang on. Ooh, great. Here we go. Superior Fit, man. Thank you very much. Saying, love your live chats. What do you know about the Dodge orders? I ordered my red eye 2 weeks ago, and my dealer said it will be built because it's a sold order. Also, are diff braces bad? So actually, multiple Mopars can answer the question about the red eyes. They are being built. It's just taking a little bit of time. You're probably 8 weeks out from the date of order. May go into 10, but it'll be, I doubt it. It should be about 8 weeks out on that. Now, asking about, are diff braces bad? No, they're not. I have to just kind of caveat that with, you've got to install them properly. So if you have, say this phone here is your differential, okay, and it's held in place in your cradle a certain way, right? And it's on rubber bushings, so there is an ability for that diff to kind of move around a little bit as if it needs it, right? But it's not a solid, rigid mount. But it's pretty stiff. It's not like it's just in there flopping around. It's actually held in there pretty tight. The idea is to keep it from arcing up and from rolling that diff back under hard acceleration. There is some movement in there, and the idea is to keep it from moving around too much, because those the mounting points can get stressed in that respect. So what you do is you put a diff brace on it. But here's where guys get the diff brace installed wrong. Hang on a second. Bear with me, guys. So here's where guys can end up getting that wrong. And I'm hoping I don't have to cut this show short, because it looks like my charging lead just flaked out. When you mount the diff brace, you're going to mount that diff brace exactly to the differential itself, but you're also mounting it to the cradle itself. For most of the performance, the per number 4 mats setups. Here's the problem. Guys will take the cradle bolts and they'll tighten them up real hard into the cradle, and that's really not how you're supposed to set that up. The way you set it up is you basically just get them a little bit snug, and the idea is you still allow for some slight movement, but you're not altering the pinion angle. Even though these cars have CV joints, you don't want to be screwing around too much with that pinion angle, and when you rock that diff up a little bit, you're affecting the pinion angle there. All right, hang on a second, guys. I got to get a charging lead. This thing's about to flake out. Hold, please. That son of a... Dang. on just a second. Bear with me. That should bring us back to life. All right, here we go. That was actually pretty close, too. Hang on there, Betsy. You got this. So my plug-in thing kind of croaked, and I'm using one of these, standalone battery packs to keep everything going. And I didn't realize the charging cord that I have is a piece of shit. So into the bin it goes. Let's see. Bear with me here just a second. Hold on. Oh, Sean's saying a strong CUDA redesign and he'd go back to Mopar. I'll tell you something. There's a lot of folks that have been saying that. I mean, you're not alone in saying that, bro. In fact, I'll take that a step farther. There's a lot of guys that there's a lot of existing customers that have moved on because, quite frankly, their desires for a Mopar died on the vine. Kind of a bummer, really, when you think of it that way. But, people like to get new things. And it used to be that back in the day, especially during the muscle car era and into the 70s and all that, most folks would trade cars, every 3 to 5 years. They certainly wouldn't keep them any longer than 5 years. And they'd trade into something else. And they can't do that with a Dodge right now. And the thing about it is that Dodge kept saying, well, we want you to grow within the brand. That was the last Yammer session that had popped up. And the issue with that is that, that's great. But growing within the brand means that you want me to go from an expensive ass car to a very expensive ass car. Kind of a stiff proposition when there are a lot of really cool, equally as fast, very ass expensive cars out there. So, that's one of those things where it just makes it extremely difficult. Taycan, that's what it is. Thank you, Ryan. It makes it extremely difficult to have the conversation of, do you stick with the brand that's not sticking with you? And it feels like, there's just not a lot of loyalty there if you're not trading way up. It's like they just leave well enough alone. And I get it. Let sleeping dogs lie. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're selling plenty of them. Profits are great and all that. That's fine, but you leave something hanging out there like that for that long, folks start to move on. So, but I appreciate that, Superior, very much, man. It means a ton to me, brother. Let's see. Let's see here. Hang on. Get back up to this. Oh, what happened here? Sean just says I'm going through here. Sean saying I bought my Coyote Mustang for 5.7 Challenger money, no brainer. That's funny. Broken, canceled, bald. Yeah, very. Yeah, it is. Chicks dig it too. Wide Body saying hit the like button for sure. Let's see. All right, so man, I blew right through this here. There we go. Bear with me here. Brian saying I'm just gonna pick somewhere to start because make it a lot easier here. I would start with this. And Jordan saying, I remember my 4.7 HO Grand Cherokee, 6 seconds, 0 to 60 was fast. Nuclear Shark saying, I'm seeing leftover 20 GTs up here in Vancouver for 38 grand Canadian with 10 speed and 355 gears. Pretty good deal. That is a good deal. And again, Sean, thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's like 100 freedom bucks. Donnie's saying that's exactly what I did with my 5.7. Did you get you a Mustang? Yeah, Shawnee's saying, yeah, he just got his Mustang. Already swapped it over to E85. Yep, and that car is going to get real fast, real quick. Nuclear's saying, I got an 87 Grand National and an 04 GT. Looking at new GTs right now myself, just a good deal for the dollar. Well, it is, and you can get a lot of car for the money, but here's the funny thing about the Mustang. So Mustang 355 gear, a tune, and just leave it at that. That's actually a pretty fast car, certainly into the 11s, but has a stupid mile an hour to boot, especially for the ET. So when you look at it from that point of view, you've got to ask yourself, what exactly are you going to do with that car? And, if a mid 11-second car at 120 miles an hour is something that is going to make you happy, then that's absolutely the way to go. They're easy to launch. They haul ass. Keep them lightly modified, and they basically are like an anvil. You just beat on them all day long, and they don't ever seem to break. The only problem that I see with the Mustang, and this is one of those things where you just kind of go, man, you don't believe all the hype. You still have to shell out quite a bit of money if you want to go considerably fast. But, if you want to be in that 11-second range, good mile an hour, good highway mile an hour, it's impossible to beat the Mustang. And if you've got the kind of money to throw at one of those things, they are hell to beat on the roll race circuit. So, you really can't lose going with the Mustang, but that's why everybody goes with Mustangs, right? And, different flavors are always good. Speak for you saying, hey, B, on HP Tuners, where is long-term knock retard found? Is it the channel list on the left column anyway to determine boost PSI on HP Tuners? Yeah. So long-term is going to, I can actually walk you through it right now. You go into your HP Tuners. If you're looking to log, to find out where to get the PID. Actually, I think PID is already set up in HP Tuners for long-term fuel trims, if I remember correctly. But you would go into engine. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me get you to the log first. I would actually have to be hooked up to this to do this. Hook up to the car to do this. You would connect to the car. You would go to the gear that says add a channel. And you would go to, let's see, engine. Is it under spark and ignition, I believe? Advanced retard. Under that one, or is it under general? Hang on just a second. I'd have to go in here and find it because I think with HP Tuners for the scanner, I want to say that it is part of like a default PID list. And then you just add to that. I've got a config file. I'm looking at all kinds of stuff in my config file, but let me get you to the exact one. I thought it was under spark and ignition. Let's see. It's not under retard, not under advance. Bear with me here. It's not loading torque. Man, I think in HP it's supposed to be like a default. Hang on, I'm gonna try to find it for you in here though. Air charge engine. Trying to find it in here. I'm actually looking it up for you as I'm talking here. But I've never actually had to pull up long term. I'm gonna do this. I'll just put long. You can actually do a search. I try to do it. Okay. It is under engine, fuel, open and closed loop fuel learning, long-term fuel trim, bank 1. So hopefully that will help you find it right there. So there you go. That's how you find it's a default. It's almost like an NPC for HP tuners. You know, it just kind of shows up. It's always there. But yeah, that's where you would find it. It is under the engine side, fuel, open and closed loop, and long-term fuel trim. Bank 1, long-term fuel trim, bank 2, the first 2. So there you go with that. Hopefully that helps. What the hell? Nuclear Shark saying, yeah, I got his Grand National on E85. Wow, does that stuff work great with the turbo? Good grief. 23 pounds of boost and on the street like race gas. Absolutely. Oh, Brian's hanging out with Sean. Hella saying, don't want a tire flying off on the dyno. They don't fly off. What happens is they fly apart. We've had guys put the cars on the dyno on like a set of ET Street R's, and it just fillets those tires. Makes a huge mess. Sovereign Knight checking in. Let's see. Got some guys hanging out. I like it. Brian said, raced my car 250 miles and ran 12.4 in the heat at 116.5, spinning the tires. Very nice. Oh, Shawnee. Yeah, Shawnee's and Racer X's car do look practically identical. And Nuclear saying the 5.0 just doesn't have the hit down low like the Scatty does. Yeah, no, they don't. And that's, again, it's just a different way of doing business. You know, the Mopars always will have that harder hit as opposed to the 5.0 that, you know, its work is all done on the right-hand side of that dyno sheet. Lots of top-end power, lots of top-end pull, but where the 10-speed automatic really comes into play is just the fact that when that car shifts into 5th. Okay, so for you guys that don't know, shop is very near Velocito, and it's a pretty night. There's a lot of folks out making hits, so that's a fun thing. So you'll hear that every once in a while. People running out there to do some testing, if you will. But that's the thing. I mean, when the getting back to it, squirrel. But when the 10-speed hits 5th, the 5th gear is significantly more aggressive than the 5th gear that's in the HP 70 or HP 90, and the sixth gear is too. So you've got these tweener gears that just absolutely accentuate that power curve of that Coyote motor. Funny thing is that functionally, you know, the 10-speed automatic 1, 2, 3, and 4 are very close. But it's after that where things get very interesting with the Mustang. Let's see. Slash saying, Happy Easter, Slash. Emmy's saying, good street tires, fresh gas, clean air filter, fresh oil change, drain the catch can, check the bolts, clean the car undercarriage. It is brutally clean as always. Thanks. You got it. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's when he was asking about the tips and tricks or what should he do to get the car to the dyno. The big thing is just go over the car and make sure that it's fit. You would be surprised. Okay, perfect example of this, tire pressure. A lot of guys won't run the right tire pressure. And I always say, if you're going to have the car on the dyno, you need to have a minimum of 35, 36 PSI in the tire. The thing is going to be strapped down to a dyno, but have proper tire pressure. And when you check your tire pressure, check the tire. It's not, I'm not going to say it's not uncommon. Every once in a while, this would happen. You get a car on the dyno and it's got a screw sticking in the tire. Can't put the car on the dyno with a screw in the tire. if you have a tire failure on the dyno, let me explain to you why. And I keep bringing up the tire thing, right? Tire failures are scary as hell because you've got 60 pounds worth of pissed off rubber flapping around and basically disintegrating anything that it touches, including the car or people that are around it. So you never want to have a situation where you're putting a tire in a position where it could, come apart. Now, obviously, a screw, chances are, is not going to cause a tire to come flying apart. But stranger things have happened, as they say. And just make sure that everything, again, is fit for the amount of load that it's going to be put under. So anyway, word to the wise, tire pressure is another thing, but just inspect the tires and make sure you don't have a big old screw or a nail or whatever foreign object sticking in there. Wide Body saying, hit the like buttons, hit the like buttons. Got the thumbs up. I like it. Shawnee's saying that his Mustang made 415 on a dyno on a dyno jet. I was pleasantly surprised. I was hoping to run 11s with just a tire mod and nothing else. It would be tough with a 315 gear. I know the 355 cars can run 11s. But actually, they can both probably run 11s. Donnie's saying the 5.0 is enticing because of Dodge's boring mid-range options right now. You know what's funny is that Dodge has a funny way of, and this is why I've been saying that you'll never see a 426 get released, at least not unless they do a severe update to a special model like a 1320. Because when you look at a 5.7, it's almost a little bit devious, but when you look at a 5.7, you cannot get to the performance level of a 392 unless you spend 392 money on it. In other words, the equivalent. You're going to end up spending what you would have spent on a 392 on the 5.7 to get it there. The exact same is true for the 392. To get it to the power performance level, what have you, of a Hellcat, you will spend probably more than what you would have spent just getting a Hellcat on the 392 to get it there. That's, that's just what you see, right? New for new and all of that. But after the Hellcat, things are a little bit different. To get red-eye performance out of a Hellcat, all you got to do is put a 309 gear in it and tune it. And then you're faster than a Hellcat. Faster than a red-eye. And to get Demon performance out of a red-eye, you basically already own a Demon-ish. Just tune it for race gas. And voila, you drive a Demon now. So there's a lot that, once you get past the 392 into a Hellcat, it opens up a lot of options. But the problem is that not everybody even wants to go that fast. I'll give you a really good example. And I'll also tell you that, more than often is the case, more is just more of. And it's like I always tell guys, you want more. I keep hearing, I want more. I want more power. I want more boost. I want better ETs. I want all this other stuff. And it's like, look, here's my way of looking at more when it comes to those things. I'm going to make you a shit sandwich. Do you want more or less filling on your sando? That's the problem that you run into when you start going more and more and more has got to get better, right? Because at some point, like today, I'm dealing with a fuel quality issue. When you're boosted, fuel quality takes on this whole new importance in your life. And a slight issue with fuel quality can mean a significant issue potentially for your engine, especially if you are trying to, pulley it up or go really fast. So, the fact that there aren't any real mid-range options through Dodge, it's like everything is a mid-range option. They just don't have mid-range options in terms of price points with 392s. You still have to shell out that money to get a 392 powered car. And I think that's where a lot of guys get a little bit stung. You know, there's not a 5.7 that runs with a 392. And if you want something that runs like a 392 and you own a 5.7, you've got to come up with a significant amount of money. Now, there are guys that like to hot rod their cars. They love that kind of stuff. And for them, the 5.7 is a great place to start. But for a more casual participant in this lifestyle, they're probably going to upgrade, if you want to call it that, to a 392. And that's about as high as they'll go, because it only takes one race against a Mustang on the street to completely change your opinion of how fun and how snappy that Scat Pack might be. That's fine. And that conversation works really well in a vacuum. But when you introduce a different variable, so to speak, with that Mustang, then that's when things get a little bit, well, more real, if you will. And when that Mustang starts putting links on your 392 from a roll, and it's easier to drive on the street because it comes with a decent sized tire, you find out that you don't have to make excuses or make concessions for the Mustang. If it's stock, it's stock. But I will say this, a Scat Pack on a drag radial is a beast on the street. I used to go sniping after Hellcats with mine. So my SRT, by the way, the heaviest of the group, still went low 11s with that car with a stock cam. So it can absolutely be done, and it has been done, and it will continue to be done until the way that it has been, I should say, let me preface that, until Dodge gives folks something that they can actually play with and work with. Oh yeah, one more thing. The 5.7 has a unique advantage with Dodge in general because Dodge offers or offered the Scat packages, stage 1, 2, and 3. Pretty cool cars, at least, you know, in terms of upgrades. You could get an ECU flash, you could get a camshaft, exhaust systems, all of that through Dodge that would be part of your warranty. Didn't offer any of that for the 392. To add insult to injury, it was just basically a bunch of 392 parts being put onto the 5.7. Unfortunate, though, that they didn't ever get the ability to run that 392 intake on it, but I digress. Let's see. Broken Cancel saying, Tesla is better. Tesla is faster. Then what? Then what? Then a Taycan? Show me one that is. And that's the big issue right now. But they're going to get there. You're going to see a fleet of electric cars that are stupid fast. And don't be surprised if these things start landing sooner or later. Now, the only issue, and this is a big deal for me for electric cars right now, and why I'm not going to buy one anytime real soon, is, well, I'll put it to you like this. Cell phones, right? These things evolve so quickly that this model, whatever model iPhone this is, I'm not an iPhone guy. I'm not an Android guy. I'm a does it work guy. So, in fact, this is being shot on an Android, by the way. But for me, it's like an electronics, right? So the thing that I have a bit of a beef with as far as buying one of these electric cars now is range is constantly being improved upon. If I buy something now that's electric, it's going to be range-wise obsolete in probably 2 or 3 years, 4 years at the most. Is there going to be still any held value? Will the battery pack Will that thing still have X capacity? You know, at what point does a very expensive battery pack have to be replaced? All of these concerns are going to start cropping up as these cars start to go through their life cycle. See, right now they're new, they're fun, they're exciting, right? You know, a Taycan GT Turbo Elemento QXG goes 1050s at 130 miles an hour. e-tron high tens at 125 miles an hour. But when it's 5 years old, like my Hellcat, will it still go 1050s or 1090s or 1080s, whatever the thing ran? And that goes for any of them. It goes for, you know, a Tesla Plaid, a Tesla Ludicrous, a Tesla whatever, in whatever Tesla it is. It doesn't matter if it's a Tesla or any of them for that matter. Will it maintain that level of performance? And that's something that we just don't know yet. At least the general public doesn't know it. And that's one of the reasons that's keeping some folks from buying into the whole electric thing early on. Plus, you know, early adopters, you're going to get dinged. I mean, if you think the Mopar tax is bad, try electric car early adopter tax. That's a good one for you. You're saying Mopar tax. I literally just got through talking about it. That's funny. Oh, Nuke was saying, I think what makes the 5.0 the compelling package is that 10-speed and the 355s. I drove a 1950 manual base car, and it just didn't have the bottom end that I like. Look, I'll be honest with you. The later cars with the revised transmission ratios are not that much fun to drive. The MT80 is actually a little bit more fun because it's more aggressive transmission ratios. But I'll be real honest with you. That car with a manual transmission, I just don't know that I would be a taker at that. And the Mustang kind of lends itself to a manual, right? But I mean, nowadays these manual transmissions cannot deal with what an automatic can do. So I don't know, it'd be a tough call for me. Wide Body saying, I have a 2021 body Scat pack Charger. Very nice. I've added a leg maker, cold air intake, Fastman 88mm throttle body. Good part. Borla Attack cat back exhaust, and now Cook's high flow cats, and have an MMX ported intake and Diablo 3 with PCM. Very nice. Shawnee's saying, I experienced the Mopar tax when I modded my 392. I did get results, but it was almost $100 per horsepower at the wheels. That, by the way, is the going rate. Let's see. In fact, if you look at what the cars cost just in general, you know, Hemi gets you, 370 horsepower for 37 grand. A top of the line, a 392 car goes for about 48 grand, sticker-ish. Hellcats 707 somewhere in the 70s. You get the idea. So funny how that works out. Brian's saying, yeah, it's true. Nothing like the bottom end. Yeah, on a Mopar, it's tough to beat. Nuclear saying, it doesn't seem right. The Mopar guys seem to get hosed on aftermarket parts versus the Ford and GM counterparts. So the reason that is that it's incredibly hard to improve upon the Mopar offerings, the stuff the cars came with stock. And it's not to say that you can't improve upon them, but here's the thing. As an engineered powertrain, the Dodge engines do a really good job. Talking specifically about the 392 here, it just comes so well optimized from the factory. You got to remember that the 392 is just a board and stroke small block. And so it's got a fairly large cam, although not much duration, pretty high lift. It's got an extremely long runner intake manifold, all in an attempt to build bottom end torque. Oh, and it's a variable runner at that, but all in an attempt to build bottom end torque and mid-range power. Top end horsepower is just something that kind of happens with that thing because it'll just, switch modes in the intake and go to the short runner style runners. But the real thing that those cars do really well is make a lot of mid-range and bottom-end power, and they need it because these barges weigh so much. So in knowing that, they do a fantastic job. And so when you try to put a shorter runner intake on it to build top-end power, you lose all this grunt down low, and the thing's a dog to drive, which makes putting camshafts together kind of a challenge for Mopars, because you don't put a cam profile in a Dodge that looks like a cam profile for an LS. It just doesn't play like that. So you'll be left to be somewhat surprised. Fairly mild looking camshafts in the LS world are actually pretty chunky cams in the Hemi world. So just something to consider there. But yeah, they do get a little bit hosed. There's just not a lot of development for the Mopar stuff, and that's a bummer. Sean saying, after 20 miles per hour, my Coyote Mustang will pull all over my 392 Scat Pack, but the first 6-speed Scat was loads of fun. Yeah, they were a lot of fun. But it's just how fast things evolve nowadays. Donnie's saying, I did a full NA build on a 5.7. It just doesn't make any sense to go further when that 5.0 is faster on E85. It depends on the type of car that you want, though. I mean, faster is not always better. And that's where a lot of guys get, first of all, it's where a lot of guys get their feelings hurt. Somebody's car is faster. Well, first of all, there's always somebody that's faster. So there's that. You will forever be looking up at that point. So in knowing that, it's just whatever makes you happy, whatever literally makes you smile, whatever you enjoy, that's the car that you need to go after and build. And if it's the Mustang and you want the top end rush, that's the way to go. Mike's saying, local dealer has a low mileage Scat Pack in black with gray stripes. Barely had my RT for a year, and the good Lord has tested me already. I hear that. Shawnee's saying, get the 392 while they still make them. Yeah, I mean, if you want that big V8 sound and punchiness, you want that experience, keep in the back of your mind that engine may or may not be around in another 5 years. Who knows? We don't know. Brian says, Sean, you nailed it. He's talking about a buddy has an RT with a lot of stuff done to it, and he torches him. I don't know. I mean, we've been doing pretty good with the Joker packages with the 5.7s. They run pretty strong, but it's just it's a different way of doing business, man. That's all there is to it. And again, being the fastest doesn't always work. And of course, anytime somebody loses, there's always an excuse, right? So, for whatever reason, there's an excuse. But I enjoy all of them. I think they're all great. Nuclear saying, yeah, the 5.0 Mustang is a fly in the ointment. Otherwise, the Scat Pack Challenger seems to be good dollar for dollar horsepower value. Let's not forget something, guys. Back in 2015, and this is kind of one of those problems with Dodge. Back in 2015, the Mustang had a 6-speed automatic, and it would not run with anything with a 392. It just wouldn't. You can talk about blowers and all this other BS. They just would not run with a 392. It wasn't really until the 10-speed automatic showed up to the party that combination legitimized itself stock for stock as a force to be reckoned with. And I remember saying this back in 18. I was saying, guys, get ready. This is going to be a mid 11-second car from the factory that is going to have legs like you have no idea. There's a video floating around on my channel. My thoughts on, I think, is in the playlist with me yammering on about that car. And true to form, yeah, it lived up to the hype and then some. Probably a little undersold, if I'm being honest. So there's that. But yeah, it's pretty nasty. LS, what I was saying, like you can go to almost any junkyard and find an LS for under $500. It opens the door for a lot of people financially. Yeah, so doing LS swaps, I mean, that's true. And I've even thought about, at some point with Sierra just biting the bullet and doing a 5.3 with a, I don't know, maybe probably leave the rear end in it, 4L60, just early 5.3, cam, stock intake, swap headers, and just let it eat, and that may be something that happens later on. And the thing is that the LS does open up that opportunity, but it's not as easy as that. There's a lot of guys that get into the LS swap, insert whatever they're going to work on, only to find that the engine that they buy is trash. That happens a lot. Transmissions are junk. And so, you've got to go through several before you find a good one. It's not as cheap and easy as folks would like to have you believe, but it is cheaper and easier to get an engine that is stronger than anything that would have been like any of the SBC family would have been from back in the day. I mean, we're talking even up through the 400 small block, LT1, old school 350s, any of those get their ass handed to them by a 5.3. So, with just a little bit of breathing on. I mean, it doesn't take much. So there is that, but you've got to find just the right combination, and it's got to be something that you don't have to sink a ton of money into. That you don't want to buy something for, a whole engine transmission combination with a harness and everything else for, $1,500, only to have to sink another, $1,500 or $2,000 into the thing to make everything work together. Still, it's not a bad deal, but it's not as good of a deal as folks would like to believe. That's why I always suggest find a vehicle that's running. Get you a Tahoe or a pickup truck or something like that you can actually drive. Make sure that the thing is running. It's not smoking. Pull the valve covers off. Make sure it's not all sludged up and junk. Shuck all the good parts out of it and then sell the Hulk or whatever. Just give the scrap to the junkyard. So anyway, that's the way to do it. And again, Superior, man, I appreciate that, buddy. Let's see. Brian said, you can do an LS, but you can do a Hemi swap too. Well, if you got enough money, you can swap anything into anything, but we'll see. Infidel saying, does Dodge plan on making a more powerful Hellcat in the future? Yes, but it won't be gasoline only. It will probably be some type of a hybrid, which will be cool in terms of transitional technology. But to really be the bully on the block, you got to go all electric. And until they do that, hybrid will have to do. But yeah, be on the lookout for something pretty nasty coming in the future. Nuclear Shark saying, you mean 808 horse in the super stock ain't enough? Well, the problem with the super stock is that, is it really 808 horsepower? I mean, let's be real. My car was only a 2/10 of a second slower, I should say, than an extremely race prepped super stock at Mopar Mageddon. In fact, I was running consistent 10 teens with that car running consistent 10 O's. So less than 2/10 difference, with the best pass being a 9.9X for the super stock, and the best pass for my car being a 10.12. So again, within 2/10 on an 800 horsepower car. Mine's only supposed to be rated at 700 horsepower, and I don't have enough in the tune to even validate calling it a tune in some cases. So, and that's with my car being run on 93 octane and that other car being run on the race gasoline. Just saying. Let's see. James is saying, you're a king for a day. Dodge needs an update. What do you do and still call it a muscle car? Revise the current LX platform. Use lighter weight materials where applicable. A slight revision to the mounting of the cradles. in the car, use a little bit better material. I'd probably use like a softer polyurethane as opposed to the very soft rubber. And as far as platforms are concerned, run a little bit better piston in the 392s. But keep the 392 as it is, run a slightly different intake manifold on it with a slightly different cam profile and bring it up to about 525 horsepower. Make a 370 or more importantly, a 330 or a 327 gear available for the NA guys. And then for the Hellcat platform, make the 309 gear an option. For the Hellcat, ditch the 2.7 and bring in the IHI 3-liter for the Red Eye and for a then new to be Demon that would again all benefit from a lighter weight platform. And then from there, add a flex fuel ability with a true sensor to everything that has a V8. And that would wrap it up. That's all you'd need to do. And you would have a fleet of cars that would pick up an honest to goodness 2 to 3 tenths in the quarter mile just by the fact that they're lighter and able to run E85 from the factory would be pretty sick. So that's me, king for a day, and that would make the lineup amazing. Let's see. Donnie's hanging out with Sean. User saying GT350 killer, a CUDA with a 426. Maybe. Depends on weight bias, weight distribution, and all of that. Infidel's hanging out with Sovereign Knight. Sean E's hanging out with Donnie. Brian said, I'd love to see a CUDA. I would too if they just do it right. And the problem, here's the thing, the problem with the CUDA, you got to remember that the Challenger had always been a larger car. And in fact, you can make the argument that the Challenger for 70 and 71 were really answers to the 68 and 69 Mercury Cougar, whereas the CUDA would have been, that sounded healthy. Whereas the CUDA, with it being slightly smaller, a little bit lighter, would have been more akin to maybe a Mustang, but it was still a heavier car nonetheless. And so, yeah, the problem is that you could do it, and you would be right to say that lighter would be better and all of that, but you're not going to see a GT350 killer coming from that platform, not unless you dry sump the 392, which would be another king for the day thing. But dry sump the 392 and make the thing available in a lighter weight platform. You might have a GT350 killer on your hand, but then again, GT350, do you even go after that thing? I don't know that you do with that platform. Sean saying, I've always been a Mopar and Mustang guy. Same here. Love Mustangs, man. Always have. Still own one. Summer saying, I don't think the 426 is coming back. I doubt it. And again, Ryan, thank you. Tycan. Good. I see you guys hanging out, talking amongst yourselves. Always good. Summer saying, electric will be fast, but it won't be a mad rumbling and grumbling V8, only a whine noise. Yeah, and that's what I was saying before, man. Look, the big issue that you run into with the electric cars is that you lose, it's like losing a sense, like, you know, losing a sense of hearing in this case. So that is a detriment to the experience. It's not a deal breaker, but it's a consideration, and you can add in all the fake noise that you want. It's still fake noise. The reality is that there is a visceral experience when you're dealing with a living, breathing, if you will, for lack of a better way of putting it, internal combustion engine. It brings in air. It has an exhaust. It uses fuel. There's oil that it uses as its lifeblood, as we always call it. There's a camshaft in there calling the shots. All of these things are very organic to somebody of a certain mindset. And a lot of folks find it difficult to relate with an electric vehicle, and I completely understand that. So I don't really know what to say about that. maybe wine. I mean, we all love supercharger wines. XT saying, is the 2021 Dodge Challenger Scat Pack 1320 worth 60 grand? It's only worth 60 grand if you'll pay that. No, there's definitely some deals that you can get on those cars to get you well under 60 grand. Infidel saying it won't be long before they're all hybrid drive systems making serious power. Yeah, my only beef with hybrid drive systems is the complexity and the weight. It's hard to get a really good weight bias with those things. I mean, I know you got LaFerraris and all this other, there's some really fast hybrids and I get that, but there's, my ideal hybrid would be a all electric platform, so to speak, with a small turbine engine or something along those lines to just keep the batteries charged. That would be very much like what a locomotive is. They use this big ass diesel motor to turn big ass generators that make big ass electric motors run. And so the locomotive is actually being powered by electric motors. That's something a lot of folks don't realize. I mean, why would you think that anyway? You got this smokestack and you got diesel running and all that. Yeah, those are steady state diesels that are there just to power those electric motors. And it's obviously much more efficient to do it that way. That's why for me, I thought it'd just be sick to death just to have a pair of small turbines. It'd be like just having a pair of turbos. That's all a turbine really is. Have a pair of small turbines powering generators, or something like that. You need more power, you fire up the turbines and you run them on natural gas or something like that. Anyway, I thought that'd be kind of trick. And you could have it to where they would fire up autonomously if the batteries were just low. Whenever the batteries got to a certain level, the turbines fire up and they keep things charged up. Something along those lines. I'm sure there's a way to make it work, but just to add a little bit of flair to it. Turbines are fairly cheap for the size that you get. They make a lot of power and you can, turn a generator on anything. I mean, turbine, as long as it's flammable, turbine will run on it. So alcohol, gasoline, diesel fuel, jet fuel, Everclear. I mean, we have terrible waste of Everclear, but you can run it on that. So anyway, if it'll say the electric motors are amazing, they need to figure out how to bring it, sound to life, basically. Give it a manual drivetrain. The only downside to it wouldn't be a downside per se. I mean, like I was saying, the guys that were doing this stuff with the forklift motors, bolting them up to the transmissions and all that, I mean, they still had clutches and they would use them basically to just disengage and move over to an X gear the same way you would with a gas motor, except you could stop the thing and start it in whatever gear it was in. So, there's that, but we'll see. I mean, the other thing is that, could you imagine how you have to have some pretty serious parts though to handle the torque of, some of these modern big electric motors. Nuclear Sharks asking, do you think Dodge will bring back a 426 Hemi 71 CUDA design before Challengers, as we know, go away? Really wondering about this, if Dodge has something up their sleeve. Man, look, here's my deal with that. The licensing agreement for the LX platform, my understanding is that it runs through the 2023 model year. We are in the 2021 model year. Now, that 2023 model year may have been extended to 2024 or 5. I'm not sure, but I'm going to use 2023 just for the sake of argument. I'll tell you what, I'll take it 1 year further than that, 2024, just for the sake of the discussion. So you're in the 2021 model year, but it's April. You've only got April, May, June, and July left in the 2021 model year. Once you hit July, any vehicles made in the month of July are typically 9 out of 10 times going to be the next model year. So July of 2021 would make your car a 2022. So we're basically only 2.5 years away from the end of the road, so to speak, for the LX platform. I would like to hear some rumor already rolling about what cool contraption Dodge is going to come up with. But we're just not seeing anything like that yet. And I guess it's the lack of that level of attention that has all of us Mopar enthusiasts so worried. You know, it was great that they made the Demon, even though they completely screwed up the marketing and were calling it a 960 car when nobody ever went 960s with that thing. Ray did the best, running a 978 and a 977 with his in as delivered form, etc. The Red Eye is proving to not really be a 800 horsepower car. And the Demon's not 800 horsepower either on 93 octane, as witnessed by the ETs that it runs. But that being said, they're also shackled with a bunch of nannies, so there's that. But, you know, would they make a 426? Somebody, speaking of manual transmission, that one sounded pretty healthy. Would they make a 426? No, they won't. And the reason why they won't is to make a 426, that engine would have had to have been in development for at least a year. Not that they can't make a 426. It's just that getting it EPA certified, and what besides staying just all the development stuff away from it, how much power would it make? The problem is that 426 would have to make about 600 to 625 odd horsepower to really be worth having a conversation about it. Here's the problem though. The Hellcat makes 700. And although you can say the 426 engine would be lighter, it would have to be made out of aluminum for it to be significantly lighter, especially when you look at power per package that you're looking at, just the physical dimensions of the thing. You know, blower weighs about 100 pounds, and I get that, screws up weight bias, but that's really not what we're talking about here. The 392 with a cam and a ported intake and a ported throttle body and a set of long tubes is pretty close to 600 horsepower, all things considered, 585, 590-ish. You know, you wouldn't be sinning to call it 600 horsepower. So you can already kind of do that with a 392, and it's a long-term known architecture. 426 isn't, basically, again, it's just a stroke small block. So that you're dealing with. I don't want to speak out of turn, but 426 may just not be worth it at this stage of the game. Not when you've got, oh, and by the way, what would it cost? It would be a medium run at best, and considering what a 392 powered vehicle costs, it's going to check in somewhere north of that. But again, because it's so far south of where the Hellcat's going to be, you'd be spending premium money to still be slower than a Hellcat, and the delta wouldn't be that great. And in fact, it could end up being more expensive than the Hellcat because of just the free law of marginal utility. I mean, the more you make of something, the less your costs are going to be, up to a certain point. Well, if you're not selling a bunch of 426s, the cost of that development is spread over a much smaller pool of vehicles, which means that it just doesn't look like it's economically viable. That's why they keep putting Hellcat engines into everything as opposed to putting a 426 NA motor into it. It's already been developed and it already makes a ton of power. No reason to move away from it. Let's see. Sean's hanging out with XD. Superior saying, should they have sent longer casing bolts with the diff brace? It depends on which diff brace you're talking about. I think you're talking about chassis bolts or the cradle bolts. No, I mean that they work fine. The idea is that you don't want to put a ton of wrist into that thing. What the hell was that? He's setting off fireworks outside. It's pretty funny. Hang on just a second. All right. But the main thing is just to not over tighten them. That's the thing you need to think about the most. Sovereign saying, yeah, I don't think the 426 is coming. Oh, Sovereign saying it's a repeat of the 70s all over again. No, I mean the new gen 426. Let's see. Oh, Shawnee's saying he feels like we're about 1971 right now with the gas crunch, horsepower hammer is about to drop. Maybe, maybe not. You know, the thing is that these cars, vehicles, whatever, the power numbers may keep going up, especially when you look at hybrid technology as well as alternative fuels, things like that start to become more popular. Roy, man, I'm sorry, I didn't even see this one pop up. Saying, can you see NASCAR with electric motors? You don't even hear the rumble anymore when they come around the corner. Yeah, I know, right? Well, and the funny thing about it is that, so you've got electronic hot rod racing they're trying to make it a thing right now, right? So you've got Formula E for the Formula One guys. You've got motorcycle, the electric racing for the motorcycles. That's kind of a thing now too. You're going to see more and more of this stuff as time goes on, but you know, it would be it would be an interesting way to go about racing. But would you want to watch it? I mean, would it even be something you'd be interested in? That without the rumble, without the roar, without the sound, it just wouldn't be there. But you got to remember that these are one-off engines. They've never been meant for a passenger vehicle, so they're perfectly fine for racing. The problem is that you would never have the real NASCAR racing, like from the 60s, 70s, 80s, when they were built and basically based off of an actual. That's why I say real NASCARs, because they used real actual cars back then. So now I'm trying to get to all y'all, but I am not going to get there before we run out of time. Let me see if I can pick some out of here real quick before we have to wrap it up. So we're coming up on 2 hours. Can you believe that? This one's gone quick. Anthony saying, your opinion, best bang for buck, a leftover 2020 Challenger or Charger? Well, Challenger, it's because it's lighter. Charger, though, is a bit more of a refined vehicle, a little bit tighter fit and finish in that Charger. So drive them both and go with your gut on that one. But again, you're going to find that the Charger is going to feel a bit more refined, a little bit higher end feel to that car than the Challenger does. Nuclear Shark saying there'll never be anything like the Challenger or Charger again. I would agree with that. So yeah, Daniel's got a good point. He said, if I was Fiat Chrysler, now Stellantis executive right now, I would be sweating bullets. The pressure to come up with something as successful as a Challenger will not be easy. No, it won't be. But, you know, if you've got deep enough pockets and a good enough imagination, you can come up with anything, but we'll see how they end up. Arthur's saying, hey, yo, what's up, B? I'm listening and changing these damn spark plugs. Oh, man. That's always a treat. Roy said, I guess I could have a band while it's going around the track. Sovereign saying, hit that like button. Yeah, hit the like button, guys. Yeah, Nuclear Shark saying that would be the end of NASCAR if they went on electric. Oh, Mr. Blacktop saying, hey, B, great chat as always. Thank you very much. Can you shed some light on the fad of mid-muffler deletes so they make sense? They make sense if you want the car to be louder. I am a bigger fan of, instead of running a mid-muffler delete, running a pair of resonators underneath there as opposed to a mid-muffler delete for the Scat Pack cars. It, in essence, makes it a Hellcat exhaust. If you have a Hellcat and you delete that mid-muffler, you have just given yourself the gift of a car that sounds like shit. So we've had them at the shop, and they are, the problem is that if you were to cut out the X pipe and put an H pipe, it would make the thing sound amazing, but nobody ever does that. And so the X pipe, by its nature, the pitch is kind of shrill, and it's got that tone to it. It gives you the feeling like you're getting nagged or something. It's a sharp, shrill sound that doesn't sound too good, but that's why you do it. I mean, you're doing it just to make the car louder, but I would say that 9 times out of 10, if you replaced it with the right exhaust, you can actually make that sound really, really good. Hilton Mode's saying, sometimes I think I'm just going to throw a tune on my 5.7 and call it a day. Yeah, when you start looking at the costs that are involved to get any deeper than that, you're going to find yourself in a pretty interesting predicament in terms of actual outflow of cash. Nitro saying, okay, B, did I waste my money buying an M6 Hellcat? Just feel like I should have researched more. No, you didn't. So the thing is that car with a tune, it can be a lot of fun. And if you like really, and a shifter, please put a Barton shifter in that car. Ask Sean, you will thank yourself time and time every time you drive the car. The clutch line mod also needs to be done to that car. There's a restrictor, there's an orifice that restricts fluid going into your slave cylinder, and it does that to help with drivability, but it kills the quickness and the direct feel of having a manual transmission. And then maybe throw a 392 gear in the thing. That 370 along with the 220, whatever it is, first gear just makes it a little bit sluggish out of the hole. 392 gear will help a little bit, but not a ton. That's like a mod of last resort, right? So what I would say is, no, you didn't waste your money. A lot of guys bought manual Hellcats. And the reason why they bought manual Hellcats is because they wanted an old school muscle car feel, which is precisely what the manual Hellcat gives you, especially with the Barton shifter and the clutch line mods. It gives you an old school hot rod feel. And if you're not into drag racing, you're more into the street, type of stuff, then yeah, it works out great. But when it comes to outright acceleration, you're just not going to get there anymore with a manual transmission. And that has nothing to do with Hellcats. It's more to do with just how good these modern automatic transmissions are. So don't feel like you've wasted your money. They're a great combination. They're fun to drive. I know quite a few guys that have owned them and absolutely love them. I've driven quite a few of them. But in terms of actual drag racing, it's going to be tough to compete again with these modern automatics. They are just that good. And there's no real difference between one and the other in terms of parasitic loss either. Anthony's saying, I'm kind of going backwards here. Anthony's saying, don't forget weather gets negative 30 up there, so no fun for electric cars. That's another thing about electric cars. I mean, if it's hot outside and you're at crazy high altitude, they're even faster. But the thing is I get it 100%. Batteries don't like very cold or very hot weather. So there's always going to be a little bit of a compromise when it comes to that. And that also will play a strong role in the long-term, just how long that battery is going to last, long-term health of that battery, if you will. Let's see. Oh, Samuel's saying, what you're not understanding, Mason, is range is not the issue. It's charge rate and a lack of connector standard for charging. An EV with a CCS charge port and a DC fast charging range is not an issue. So, no, I understand all of that completely, but you're also talking about this more in a perfect world. And the issue is that each manufacturer is running with their own charging port design. That all needs to be standardized and should be standardized, I would hope, fairly quickly. See, the thing is with a gasoline car, every gas car has a filler neck and a pump goes into the filler neck and you pump energy creating stuff into that tank. But that's a secondary issue right now. And what manufacturers are basing their or hoping, I should say, is that most folks are going to drive their cars locally. They're not going to be taking the thing on real long trips, and they're going to be charging their vehicles at their homes. And so most of the range anxiety is going to be eaten up with these 400 plus mile range cars, which in reality is more like a 300 or a 275 mile range, which will still get you pretty much anywhere you need to be for 90% of the people for 90% of the time on any given day. So for practical application, standardization, manufacturers really aren't worried about that. But that also brings up another good point is what about resale value once everything is standardized, which there is talk of standardizing plugs. That's something that needs to be considered, because if you've got a car with an old plug, obviously somebody will make adapters just like they always do, but there's a lot that is still in development. And so range, when you're charging from home and you're only driving around town, you're not going on long road trips or things like that where infrastructure is a concern, then it works out great. You just have to know that what you're playing with is a contraption that just doesn't really have legs yet. And it is what it is. You know, the refueling of a gasoline car right now is just that convenient. You do it without even thinking about it. It's not even that you take it for granted. I mean, you take it for granted the way that you take breathing for granted, but that's where the electric vehicles will eventually get to. It's just a matter of time. Technology's got to catch up with demand, and that demand can come from a lot of different places, not only the marketplace, but from governing entities and the like. So just something to consider when you're, thinking about the electric vehicles and, all the hangups to the electric vehicle. Those are all the same hangups that gasoline powered cars had. And, it's obviously a lot easier to take a tanker load of gasoline out to the middle of nowhere than it is to take a tanker load of electricity out to the middle of nowhere. But again, there's a lot of smart people working on this, and they'll figure it out. They'll get around it. You're just dealing with, you're dealing with that lull in the S curve, so to speak. So anyway, but I get your point. That's something that will always be a thing, is not only it's just mainly the infrastructure and how do you charge these things, and obsolescence comes into play. There's a lot of concerns when it comes to EV, not to mention the fact the environmental impact of mining all that lithium for these batteries. How do you turn old lithium batteries into new lithium batteries? There's a lot of things out there that will need to get solved, but they're getting there. And the cool thing is that we have them to talk about now, and they're making strides already. So it's all good. I like all of it. And with that, guys, I've got to wrap it up. We are right at 2 hours. If I didn't get to you, I certainly apologize. Hit us up on the next one. We'll try to get you in on that show. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Love each and every one of y'all. Oh, had one more come in. Eric's asking, how come Magnus and TVS 2300 kit says Arrington Performance? Are they the same company? No, I think they're just private labeling that through them. Maggie makes blowers for everybody. So hopefully that answers that question. So again, with that, love each and every one of you guys. Couldn't do the show without you. Thank y'all very much for being a part of the show. Thank y'all contributors for keeping this up and running. I think did I miss any? I want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Speaking of contributors, we got Roy in. Sometimes it doesn't pop up until it's a little bit later. Hang on, let me just verify. Roy is in. Sean E. Thank you again. Superior again. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that a ton. Himmy Head, thank you very much. Sean E. again. Thank you, buddy. Jermaine. Thank you, brother. Thank y'all all very much. Again, if you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. Get your shots. And with that, that's a wrap. Y'all stay safe out there, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. It's a wrap. Adios.